So, I have a lot of videos to reference in this video, and I suggest you check them all out because they're amazing. Anyway, I fucking hate when professional researchers just Google stuff for their info. And there's a lot of reasons. First of all, I have this video here called Proof Google Fakes the Results because they literally do falsify their searches when you type things in, and I prove it with this video. The other reason is because of this video I made here called Researching Through Censorship, which is basically a video where I explain why, because of how bad censorship is today, it's also become really, really difficult to do proper research because of how Google fakes them, and why a person who is wrong will often be seen as right in a debate or something because they can just type in their bullshit on Google and the first thing that pops up, boom, I'm right, because Google likes to hide the real information that might be too negative for dumb people to handle, right? And I talked about terminology a lot as well. Of course, there's a backwards SJW terminology rant I made where I talk about how SJW terms are literally backwards in their definitions. I also made this one. The definition of racism has been changed. This isn't about SJW beliefs. Well, it started that way, but it's about how the definition of the word racism actually did change. And I only recently learned, and this might be shocking to everybody with a brain, but you know how a lot of people are using the word colorism now? Well, I thought that the word colorism was just the modern way of saying the word racism. Turns out, you ready for this? The definition of the word racism was changed. Watch this video here to see what they changed it to. And the word colorism now is what racism used to mean, or what it should mean. Yeah, I didn't even fucking know that. So they changed, so they added the word colorism to mean racism to make the changing of the word racism appear more valid. Fucking incredible, right? Anyway, then I made another video here talking about, it's a feminist rant, but talking about how the word feminist in and of itself is actually counterproductive. Check out this video for that as well. And then, of course, how to defend yourself when SJWs attack you. As you know, SJWs will take things you say and literally invert it and use it against you. And this video is basically explaining that and also how to defend yourself when it happens to you. Check out all these videos for some very deep dives that you probably want to learn. But this video is also about definitions, but in a different way. So, and it circles back to how I hate people who claim to be professional researchers because, like with the terms that I show in these videos, professional researchers also, well, you know, people who call themselves professional, also don't understand how just because something has a term definition doesn't actually make it true, especially today. Here's a few examples. Just because Google defines critical race theory as explaining the history of oppression doesn't mean they're actually doing that. Like, there are people who are against critical race theory. It's called being smart. And the people who support it will look it up and see that Google says the explanation of history. And then a person who's a researcher and just Googled it goes, what's wrong with that? We're just explaining history. Yeah, great, that's what Google told you, but is that actually happening? Have you gone to a class where they teach CRT and seen what's actually happening? I've seen videos of not only the classes, but I've seen videos of teachers talking about it. And just because it's defined as explaining history doesn't mean they're actually doing that, because they're not. What they're actually doing is just teaching children who are white to hate themselves, black people, kids who are black to hate themselves because they're just told they're going to be failures, and just creating division. That's all they're actually doing. Or Antifa. Just because they call themselves anti-fascist doesn't mean they're not fascist themselves. Just because someone's a journalist doesn't mean they're honest. Just because someone's a lawyer doesn't make them fucking honest. Just because BLM says Black Lives Matter does not mean that they're not fucking terrorists and do all kinds of other horrible shit, like not give donations to black communities and all the other terrible things that BLM has done that I've made videos on. Or, just like how in my video, just because a feminist says we believe in equality doesn't actually mean they do. Modern feminists actually believe in man-hating, and I even explained in one of the previous videos there how the term is now backwards. Just because SJW is literally called social justice warrior doesn't mean they're actually fighting for it. They're fighting against it. Just because somebody says I'm progressive, therefore I'm progressing, doesn't actually mean they're progressing. By the way, these last two I literally said in the backwards SJW terminology rant, but I'll say it here for the purpose of this video. So to sum it up, that's why I hate people who just type things into Google. Just because you've read the literal definition online does not mean that these words or organizations follow it. Like, imagine believing that all journalists tell the truth because they took an oath in college to tell the truth. Like, how fucking naive can you possibly be? You cannot base everything on just typing things into Google and finding the first link you see or the written-in definition. What's more important, and what I think a lot of people who consider themselves professionals, people like Hunter Avalon, what people like him need to understand is that the actions of a particular person or organization is what matters, not just the goal of what the organization calls themselves. Anybody can lie, anybody can contradict themselves and go against their beliefs and have terrible actions. So this is why I hate when people just simply type things into Google, whether if it be statistics that are clearly misleading or manipulated, or even just looking up the definitions. It's the reason why a lot of extremists on the left will say critical race theory is good. Yeah, because Google told you to. But have you actually seen the classes? Have you spoken to the teachers who were forced to teach it but then stopped because they were against it? Have you seen parents talking about it? No, because your brain is just stuck on the internet. You don't know the real world. And this is why I say more over and over and over again that street smarts is more important than book smarts. Get off the fucking internet and get some street smarts. Go out into the real world and see what's really going on. Don't just look things up and go, oh, okay, I'm going to support that because it's described that way. Anyway, I think you get the point here. Check out the videos on the top and they'll give you a more in-depth explanation of what I'm saying here. See ya.